Welcome back. It's good to have you here again. Tonight, we're exploring something everyone wants, something everyone seeks, something that seems simple but turns out to be surprisingly complex. Tonight, we're talking about happiness, not the manufactured happiness of advertisements, not the curated happiness of social media, but real happiness, actual happiness, the kind that research reveals, the kind that science measures, the kind that actually makes life better. Tonight, we'll explore what happiness actually is, where it actually comes from, what actually creates it, and what actually destroys it. And perhaps most importantly, we'll discover that much of what you've been told about happiness is wrong, incomplete, based on intuition rather than evidence. But there's good news, real good news. The truth about happiness, what actually creates it, is more accessible than you think, more available than you've been told, more within your reach than the happiness industry would have you believe. Happiness is not a destination. This feels wrong, feels counter to everything you've been taught. Your whole life, you've been told that happiness is something you achieve, something you reach, something waiting for you after you accomplish enough, acquire enough, become enough. Get the degree and you'll be happy. Get the job and you'll be happy. Get the relationship and you'll be happy. Get the house and you'll be happy. Happiness is always ahead, always in the future, always after the next achievement. This is the model we inherit, the story we're told. Work hard, achieve your goals, and happiness awaits. But this model is wrong, fundamentally, demonstrably wrong. Here's what actually happens. You achieve the goal. You get the thing you wanted, the degree, the job, the relationship, the house, and there's a spike, a rush, a moment of genuine joy. You feel it. This is it. This is happiness. You've arrived. But then something happens, something predictable, something that researchers have measured thousands of times. The happiness fades, not completely, not instantly, but gradually. Over days or weeks or months, the joy diminishes. The excitement wears off. The new thing becomes normal, becomes baseline, becomes just how things are, and your happiness returns to roughly where it was before, maybe slightly higher, maybe exactly the same, but not permanently elevated, not transformed, not fundamentally different. You adapted. This is hedonic adaptation, one of the most robust findings in all of happiness research. Humans adapt to changed circumstances, both good and bad. We adapt to promotions and lottery winnings. We adapt to new cars and new houses. We adapt to relationships and achievements. Within months, sometimes weeks, we return to our baseline level of happiness, our set point, the level of happiness that seems to be relatively stable for each person. This adaptation happens with almost everything. A new car brings joy for weeks, maybe months, then it's just your car. A new house brings excitement, then it's just where you live. Even major positive events, things you've wanted for years, produce temporary spikes that fade with time. This is not cynicism, not negativity. This is measured reality. This is what actually happens. And here's the cruel part. The adaptation doesn't stop you from believing the next thing will be different. Doesn't prevent you from thinking the next achievement, the next acquisition, will finally create lasting happiness. Your mind forgets the adaptation, forgets that every previous achievement faded, and projects happiness onto the future, onto the next goal. This next thing will be different. This next achievement will finally do it. Will finally create the lasting happiness you seek. But it won't. It will spike and fade, just like everything before it. This is the hedonic treadmill, running forever toward a happiness that's always ahead, always in the future, always after the next thing. So if happiness isn't a destination you reach, what is it? Happiness is more like weather, like climate. It changes, fluctuates, varies day to day, moment to moment. Sometimes you're happy, sometimes you're not. Sometimes life feels good, sometimes it doesn't. This variation is normal, is natural, is part of being human. You're not supposed to be happy all the time. That's not how emotion works. That's not how life works. Emotions vary, change, flow. This is healthy. This is normal. Expecting constant happiness is like expecting constant sunshine. It's unrealistic, it's impossible, and pursuing it creates suffering, creates the sense that something's wrong when you're not happy, creates the feeling that you're failing when you experience normal human emotions like sadness or frustration or disappointment. Happiness is better understood as overall life satisfaction, as a general sense that your life is good, is meaningful, is worth living. This doesn't mean you feel happy every moment, doesn't mean every day is joyful, doesn't mean you never experience negative emotions. It means that overall, when you step back and look at your life, you feel satisfied, feel that things are okay, feel that life is worth living. This is a different measure, a different understanding. Not moment to moment mood, but overall assessment, overall satisfaction. This is what predicts well being, what predicts thriving, what predicts a good life. And this satisfaction comes from specific things, not from achievement, not from acquisition, not from reaching destinations, but from how you live, how you relate, how you engage with your experience. Research has identified the factors that actually predict life satisfaction, that actually create happiness, and they're not what the culture tells you, not what advertising promises, not what Instagram suggests. They're simpler, more accessible, more fundamental. Connection is the most powerful predictor of happiness. This is perhaps the most important finding in all of happiness research. Relationships matter. Social connection matters. Human bonds matter. More than money, more than success, more than achievement, more than almost anything else you can measure. People with strong relationships are happier, consistently, reliably, across cultures, across time periods, across circumstances. This is one of the most robust findings in all of psychology. Connection creates happiness. Isolation destroys it. The Harvard study of adult development has been tracking people's lives for over 85 years. Started in 1938, followed hundreds of people from youth through old age, measured everything: health, success, relationships, happiness, longevity, everything. And after 85 years of data, after following people through their entire lives, the clearest finding is this: relationships are what matter most. The quality of your relationships predicts your happiness better than anything else, better than wealth, better than fame, better than career success. People with warm, close relationships are happier, are healthier, live longer. People with poor relationships or isolation are less happy, less healthy, die younger. This is not correlation, this is causation. Relationships create well-being, literally, measurably, predictably. But not just any relationships. Quality matters more than quantity. You don't need to be popular, don't need hundreds of friends, don't need a huge social circle. You need a few close connections, a few people who really know you, who see you, who care about you. One close friend creates more happiness than 100 acquaintances. One intimate relationship creates more well-being than dozens of superficial connections. Depth matters more than breadth. Intimacy matters more than popularity. Being known matters more than being liked by many. And it's not just romantic relationships. All genuine connections matter. Friendships matter. Family bonds matter. Community ties matter. Colleague relationships matter. Any relationship where you can be authentic, where you're seen, where you matter, contributes to happiness. This makes sense evolutionarily. Humans evolved in groups, in tribes, in communities. Isolation meant death. Connection meant survival. We're wired for belonging, for social bonds, for being part of something larger than ourselves. This isn't cultural, isn't learned, is biological, is fundamental to what we are. But modern life works against this, creates conditions that isolate, that disconnect. We live alone more than any generation in history, work remotely, interact through screens, have hundreds of online friends and few real ones, have more connectivity and less connection. We're more reachable and more alone. This creates suffering, creates the loneliness epidemic, creates rising rates of depression and anxiety. We're living against our biology, against our nature, in ways that create isolation, and isolation destroys happiness, not dramatically, not obviously, but slowly, steadily, reliably. There's something both beautiful and terrifying about this knowledge. Beautiful because connection is available, is accessible, doesn't require achievement or acquisition, just requires showing up, being present, being real with others. Terrifying because it means we've been chasing the wrong things, prioritizing career over relationships, success over connection, achievement over presence. We've been climbing ladders that lean against the wrong walls, pursuing goals that don't create the happiness we seek, and ignoring the thing that actually matters, that actually creates well being, connection, relationship, belonging. Gratitude is another powerful creator of happiness. This sounds cliche, sounds like something from a greeting card or a motivational poster, but it's true, demonstrably true, repeatedly measured. People who regularly practice gratitude are happier, more satisfied with life, more optimistic, less depressed. This isn't subjective impression, this is measured outcome. Researchers have studied gratitude extensively, have run controlled experiments, have compared people who practice gratitude to people who don't. The results are clear. Gratitude creates happiness, but not vague, general gratitude, not just feeling grateful, but specific practice, actually writing down what you're grateful for, actually noticing specific things, actually paying attention to what's good in your life. This practice changes your brain, literally. Brain scans show that regular gratitude practice strengthens neural pathways associated with positive emotion, weakens pathways associated with negative emotion, changes the default patterns of your thinking, makes your brain more likely to notice good things, more likely to experience positive emotions, more likely to feel satisfied. This makes sense when you understand how attention works. Your attention is selective, cannot notice everything, must filter, must choose. And what you repeatedly attend to shapes your experience, shapes your perception, shapes your sense of reality. If you repeatedly attend to what's wrong, what's lacking, what's missing, you'll experience life as lacking, as insufficient, as disappointing. If you repeatedly attend to what's working, what's present, what's good, you'll experience life differently, not as perfect, not as ideal, but as containing good things, as having positive elements, as being okay. Gratitude practice trains attention, trains you to notice good things, not to ignore bad things, not to deny problems, but to also see what's working, what's present, what's good. This balanced attention creates more accurate perception because life contains both, contains problems and blessings, contains difficulty and grace, contains pain and beauty. Attending only to problems creates distorted perception, creates the sense that life is only problems. But attending to both, seeing both, creates more accurate, more balanced perception, and more balanced perception creates more happiness. The practice is simple. Each day, write down 3 things you're grateful for, specific things, not vague generalities, not, I'm grateful for my health, but, I'm grateful my knee didn't hurt today when I walked, not, I'm grateful for my family, but, I'm grateful my daughter laughed at dinner. Specific, concrete, particular. This specificity matters, makes the practice real, makes it connect to actual experience rather than abstract ideas. And here's what happens. Over weeks of practice, your brain changes, starts noticing good things automatically, starts looking for things to be grateful for. This isn't forced positivity, isn't denial, is trained attention, is shifting what you notice, what you attend to, what shapes your experience. And this shift creates genuine change, genuine increase in happiness, measured, reliable, replicable. There's something profound about this, about the power of attention, about how what you notice shapes what you experience. Your life contains both good and bad, always, in every moment. Every day contains difficulty and ease, contains problems and blessings. What you attend to determines which you experience more, determines whether life feels hard or manageable, overwhelming or okay. Gratitude practice is attention training, training to notice the good alongside the bad, training to see both, to experience both. This creates more accurate perception, more balanced experience, more happiness. Purpose matters enormously for happiness. This is the difference between pleasure and satisfaction, between feeling good and feeling fulfilled. Pleasure is temporary, comes from external things, from consumption, from entertainment, from sensory experiences. Pleasure is nice, is enjoyable, but doesn't create lasting happiness, doesn't create deep satisfaction. Purpose does, meaning does. Feeling that your life matters, that you're contributing, that you're living for something beyond yourself. This creates deep, lasting satisfaction, creates the sense that life is worthwhile, that you're living well, that your existence has value. Research distinguishes between hedonic well-being and eudaimonic well-being. Hedonic is pleasure, feeling good, positive emotions, enjoyment. This matters, contributes to well-being, but isn't sufficient. Eudaimonic is meaning, purpose, growth, living according to values, contributing to something beyond yourself. This also matters, also contributes to well-being. And actually, eudaimonic well-being predicts long-term life satisfaction better than hedonic well-being, meaning predicts lasting happiness better than pleasure. Not because pleasure doesn't matter, it does, but because pleasure is temporary and meaning is enduring. Pleasure fades quickly, meaning persists, sustains, provides lasting satisfaction even when immediate pleasure is absent. You can see this in people's lives. Someone pursuing only pleasure, only feeling good, often reports being unfulfilled despite many pleasurable experiences. Someone living with purpose, with meaning, often reports deep satisfaction even through difficulty, even through challenge, even through experiences that aren't pleasurable. Meaning creates resilience, creates the sense that difficulty is worthwhile, that challenges matter, that suffering serves something. This doesn't eliminate pain, but it transforms its meaning, makes it bearable, makes it purposeful rather than random. Finding purpose doesn't require grand gestures, doesn't require changing the world, doesn't require fame or significance or impact measured in headlines. Purpose is simpler, is personal, is about contributing in ways that matter to you. Could be raising children, could be creating art, could be helping neighbors, could be doing work that serves others, could be being a good friend, a reliable colleague, a kind presence. Any contribution creates meaning. Any service creates purpose. Any way of mattering beyond yourself creates the eudaimonic well-being that sustains happiness. Viktor Frankl survived Nazi concentration camps, witnessed unimaginable horror, experienced extreme suffering, and he noticed something. The people who survived, who maintained psychological health through that horror, were people who had meaning, who had purpose, who were living for something beyond themselves, living for family they hoped to reunite with, living to tell the story, living to contribute after survival. This meaning didn't eliminate suffering, but it made suffering bearable, made it purposeful, made survival matter. Frankl concluded that meaning is essential for psychological health, that humans need purpose, need to matter, need to contribute. This isn't optional, isn't extra, is fundamental to well-being. Modern life often lacks this, lacks inherent meaning, lacks clear purpose. We work jobs that feel meaningless, live in isolation that prevents contribution, spend time on entertainment that doesn't fulfill. We're materially comfortable but existentially empty, have everything and feel like we have nothing. This is the crisis of meaning, the epidemic of purposelessness, and it creates unhappiness, not dramatic unhappiness, not acute suffering, but a chronic sense of emptiness, of dissatisfaction, of wondering if this is all there is. The antidote is purpose, is finding ways to contribute, to matter, to serve something beyond yourself. This doesn't have to be dramatic, doesn't have to be your job, can be volunteering, can be parenting, can be creating, can be helping, can be any way of giving that resonates with you. The form doesn't matter as much as the experience of contributing, of mattering, of living for something beyond your own pleasure and comfort. This creates meaning, creates purpose, creates the eudaimonic well-being that sustains happiness through everything, through difficulty, through challenge, through the normal ups and downs of life. Experiences create more lasting happiness than possessions. This is another consistent finding. When people spend money on experiences, travel, concerts, classes, activities with others, they report greater lasting happiness than when they spend the same money on material possessions. The new watch, the new shoes, the new gadget, these create brief spikes of happiness that fade quickly. Hedonic adaptation kicks in. The new thing becomes normal, becomes baseline, stops creating joy. But experiences are different. Become memories, become stories, become part of your identity. Create connection when shared with others. Continue to provide happiness long after the experience ends. Why? Because experiences are about connection and meaning, not just sensation. When you travel, you're not just seeing new places, you're creating memories, building identity, often sharing with others, creating stories you'll tell for years, creating bonds through shared experience. The trip creates happiness during the trip, yes, but also creates happiness afterward, every time you remember, every time you tell the story, every time you connect with the people you traveled with. The happiness compounds, multiplies, extends far beyond the original experience. Possessions don't do this. A new car creates happiness when it's new, then it's just your car. A new phone creates excitement for days, then it's just your phone. Material things become background, become normal, become invisible through adaptation. But experiences remain as memories, remain as stories, remain as connections. The concert you attended becomes a memory you revisit. The class you took becomes a skill you have. The trip you took becomes a story you tell. Experiences live on, possessions fade into background. And experiences often involve other people, create shared memories, strengthen bonds. You remember the trip with your partner, the concert with your friend, the class you took with strangers who became friends. These shared experiences create connection, strengthen relationships, and relationships, as we've seen, are the strongest predictor of happiness. So experiences create happiness both directly through the experience itself and indirectly through the relationships they build and strengthen. Material possessions do neither. Don't create lasting happiness directly. Don't strengthen relationships. Just sit there, owning them, using them, until they become normal, invisible, background. This doesn't mean possessions don't matter. Some purchases create lasting value. A reliable car that gets you where you need to go, a comfortable bed that improves your sleep, tools that enable activities you value. These purchases serve purpose, enable life, make things better in lasting ways, but most purchases don't. Most are seeking happiness through acquisition, seeking the spike, the rush, the temporary high of buying something new. And this doesn't work, doesn't create lasting happiness, just creates temporary pleasure that fades, leaving you seeking the next purchase, the next high, the next temporary spike. If you want to be happier, spend money on experiences, especially shared experiences, especially experiences that build skills or create memories or strengthen relationships. Travel with people you love, take classes that interest you, attend events that excite you, spend on doing rather than having, on experiences rather than possessions. This creates more happiness per dollar, more lasting satisfaction, more actual well-being, not because possessions are bad, but because experiences are better. Create more happiness, more lasting, more real. Sleep deprivation destroys happiness. This is perhaps the most underappreciated factor, the thing that undermines well-being that people ignore or sacrifice routinely. You need sleep, actual sleep, 7 to 9 hours for most adults, not 5, not 6, 7 to 9. This isn't optional, isn't something you can skip without consequence. Sleep deprivation has measurable effects on mood, on emotional regulation, on happiness. People who are sleep deprived report lower happiness, higher anxiety, more depression, more irritability, more stress, all measurable, all consistent, all significant. Sleep affects everything. Affects how you process emotions, how you regulate mood, how you respond to stress, how you relate to others. When you're well rested, minor annoyances stay minor, challenges feel manageable, interactions go smoothly. When you're sleep deprived, everything is harder. Small problems feel large, manageable challenges feel overwhelming, normal interactions create conflict. This isn't weakness, isn't lack of resilience, is biology, is your brain and body functioning suboptimally due to insufficient rest. But modern culture treats sleep as optional, as something you sacrifice for productivity, for entertainment, for more work, for more activity. Sleep is seen as waste, as time you could be using for something else. This is completely backward. Sleep is not waste, is essential, is when your brain processes emotions, consolidates memories, clears metabolic waste, regulates hormones, restores systems. Without adequate sleep, all of these processes are impaired. You're literally functioning with impaired emotional regulation, impaired stress response, impaired cognitive function, and wondering why you're unhappy, why you're anxious, why everything feels hard. The research is clear. Sleep duration predicts mood, predicts emotional regulation, predicts life satisfaction. People who sleep 7 to 9 hours report significantly higher well-being than people who sleep less. This isn't because happy people sleep more. Studies that manipulate sleep show causation. When you deprive people of sleep, their mood worsens. When you improve their sleep, their mood improves. Sleep causes better mood, causes better emotional regulation, causes better well-being. This is not ambiguous, is not uncertain, is demonstrated repeatedly across hundreds of studies. If you want to be happier, prioritize sleep, protect it, make it non-negotiable. Not something you sacrifice for work or entertainment or activity, but something you protect as essential. Because it is essential. Essential for mood, essential for emotional health, essential for well-being. Sleep is not luxury, is not optional, is fundamental. Treat it that way. Prioritize it. Protect it. Get 7 to 9 hours, consistently, every night. This will improve your happiness more than most things you could do, more reliably, more sustainably, more fundamentally. Comparison destroys happiness. This is the thief, the silent killer of satisfaction. You compare yourself to others, constantly, automatically. This is natural, is built into human psychology. We're social creatures. Assess our position relative to others. This made sense evolutionarily, helped us understand our place in the social hierarchy, our relative status. But in modern life, especially with social media, comparison has become toxic, has become constant, has become destructive. Social media creates impossible standards. Everyone's highlight reel, everyone's best moments, everyone's carefully curated life. You see this and compare. Compare your behind the scenes to their highlight reel. Compare your normal day to their vacation photos. Compare your struggles to their successes, and you feel inadequate, feel less than, feel like you're failing. But the comparison is false, is unfair, is comparing incomparable things. You're comparing your full reality to their edited presentation, your struggles and mundane moments to their celebrations and achievements. This comparison makes you feel bad, makes your life seem insufficient, makes you unhappy. Research shows this clearly. Time spent on social media correlates with unhappiness. More time scrolling correlates with more depression, more anxiety, less life satisfaction. This isn't just correlation. Experiments that reduce social media use show improved well-being. When people cut their social media time, they report feeling happier, less anxious, more satisfied. The causal path is clear. Social media creates comparison. Comparison creates unhappiness. Reducing social media reduces comparison and increases happiness. But it's not just social media. All comparison creates problems. Comparing yourself to neighbors, to colleagues, to friends, to anyone. Comparison shifts your attention from what you have to what you lack, from what's working to what's not, from what's good enough to what's insufficient. This shift destroys satisfaction, destroys contentment, creates endless wanting, endless feeling that you need more, need better, need different. Comparison makes happiness impossible because there's always someone with more, someone doing better, someone more successful. As long as you're comparing, you'll find someone who has what you don't and feel bad, feel inadequate, feel unhappy. The antidote is gratitude, is focusing on what you have rather than what others have, is appreciating your life rather than comparing it, is recognizing that comparison is pointless, is unfair, is harmful. Your life is your life. Your circumstances are your circumstances. Comparing them to others doesn't help, doesn't improve anything, just creates suffering, creates unhappiness, creates dissatisfaction. This doesn't mean you can't want things, can't have goals, can't work to improve your life. You can, you should. Growth matters, progress matters, improvement matters. But comparing yourself to others doesn't help with any of this, doesn't motivate, doesn't inspire, just creates suffering, creates the feeling that you're not enough, that what you have isn't enough, that where you are isn't enough. This feeling doesn't motivate improvement, creates paralysis, creates despair, creates giving up. Better to focus on your own path, your own progress, your own growth. Compare yourself, to who you were, to where you were. Are you growing? Are you improving? Are you moving forward? This comparison is useful, is motivating, is fair, because you're comparing comparable things, your past self and your current self, your previous capabilities and current capabilities. This comparison shows progress, shows growth, shows improvement. This creates satisfaction, creates confidence, creates happiness. Physical activity creates happiness. This is another robust finding. People who exercise regularly report higher happiness, lower depression, lower anxiety, better mood. This isn't just correlation. Exercise interventions show causation. When sedentary people start exercising, their mood improves, their happiness increases, their depression decreases. Exercise creates happiness, not through achieving fitness goals, not through changing your body, but through immediate neurological effects, through changing brain chemistry, through releasing endorphins and other neurochemicals that improve mood. Even modest exercise helps. You don't need intense workouts, don't need to become an athlete, don't need to train for marathons. Just moving helps, walking helps, gentle activity helps. 30 minutes of moderate activity most days creates measurable improvement in mood and happiness. This is accessible, is achievable, is something almost everyone can do. But modern life is sedentary. We sit all day, work sitting, commute sitting, relax sitting, screen time sitting. This is against our biology, against our nature. Humans evolved moving, walking, running, lifting, carrying. Movement was constant, required for survival. Our bodies expect movement, need movement, thrive with movement, suffer without it. Sedentary life creates not just physical problems, but psychological problems, creates low mood, creates depression, creates anxiety. Movement helps all of this, improves mood, improves emotional regulation, improves happiness. The mechanism is partly biochemical. Exercise releases endorphins, releases serotonin, releases dopamine, all neurochemicals associated with positive mood, with pleasure, with happiness. Exercise literally changes your brain chemistry in ways that improve mood. This is immediate, happens during and after exercise, creates a temporary boost, but regular exercise creates lasting changes, changes baseline levels of these neurochemicals, makes your brain chemistry more conducive to happiness, to positive mood, to emotional well-being. But exercise also helps psychologically, gives you a sense of accomplishment, of capability, of agency. You did something, moved your body, challenged yourself, succeeded. This creates confidence, creates self-efficacy, creates the sense that you're capable, that you can do hard things, that you have agency over your life. This psychological effect matters, contributes to the happiness exercise creates. And exercise often creates connection, walking with a friend, playing sports, taking classes, group activities. These create both the benefits of exercise and the benefits of connection, create both improved mood from movement and increased happiness from relationship. This combination is powerful, creates significant well-being. If you want to be happier, move regularly, consistently, not intensely necessarily, just regularly. Walk, bike, dance, play, garden, any movement, any activity. 30 minutes most days. This creates measurable improvement in happiness, in mood, in well-being, not because you achieve fitness goals, not because you change your body, but because movement changes your brain chemistry, changes your mood, creates happiness directly, immediately, reliably. Autonomy matters tremendously for happiness. Feeling that you have control over your life, that you make your own choices, that you're not controlled by others or by circumstances. This sense of autonomy predicts happiness, predicts life satisfaction, predicts well-being. People who feel they have control over their lives are happier. People who feel controlled, whether by others or by circumstances, are less happy. This makes sense. Humans have a fundamental need for autonomy, for self-direction, for making our own choices. We're not designed to be controlled, to be told what to do, to be directed entirely by others. We need some degree of autonomy, some degree of choice, some degree of self-direction. This is fundamental to human motivation, to human well-being, to human happiness. But modern life often undermines autonomy. Jobs with little control, rigid schedules, external demands, financial pressures that limit choices, obligations that constrain freedom. All of this reduces autonomy, reduces the sense of control, creates the feeling of being trapped, of having no choice, of being controlled by circumstances. This destroys happiness, creates resentment, creates the sense that life is happening to you rather than being created by you. Increasing autonomy increases happiness, even small increases, even small areas where you have more control, more choice, more self-direction. Maybe you can't control your work schedule, but you can control how you spend your evenings. Can't control your financial situation entirely, but you can control some spending choices, some savings decisions. Can't control everything, but you can control something, and that something matters, creates a sense of agency, of control, of autonomy. Research shows that giving people more autonomy in work increases happiness, increases job satisfaction, increases motivation. Even when the work is the same, having more control over how you do it, when you do it, creates more satisfaction, creates more happiness. This isn't about being lazy or avoiding work. It is about having choice, having control, having autonomy. This is fundamental to motivation, to satisfaction, to happiness. If you want to be happier, increase autonomy. Find areas where you can have more control, more choice, more self-direction. Maybe it's how you spend your free time. Maybe it's what you eat. Maybe it's how you arrange your home. Maybe it's what projects you take on. Find some area, some domain where you can exercise choice, where you can self-direct, where you have autonomy. This will increase your happiness, your satisfaction, your sense of well-being, not dramatically, not instantly, but consistently, reliably, meaningfully. Mindfulness reduces suffering. This is one of the most replicated findings in recent psychology research. Mindfulness, paying attention to present moment experience without judgment, reduces anxiety, reduces depression, reduces stress, increases happiness, increases life satisfaction, increases well-being. This isn't mystical, isn't religious, is practical, is trainable, is accessible to anyone willing to practice. Why does mindfulness help? Because much suffering comes from not being present, from living in your head rather than in your life, from being lost in thoughts about past or future rather than experiencing the present moment. This is the fundamental problem, the core issue, the root of unnecessary suffering. You're not actually living your life. You're living in mental representations of your life, in thoughts about your life, in interpretations, judgments, narratives about your life, but not in your actual life, not in direct experience, not in the present moment where life actually happens. This matters enormously because thoughts about life and actual life are completely different. Thoughts can be catastrophic while reality is manageable. Thoughts can be terrifying while the present moment is okay. Thoughts can generate intense suffering while actual experience is tolerable. Most anxiety exists in thoughts about the future. Most depression exists in thoughts about the past. Most suffering exists in the mental realm, in the space of thinking, not in actual present moment experience. When you're lost in thoughts, you're missing your actual life, and you're creating unnecessary suffering through the content of those thoughts. Mindfulness brings you back, returns you to now, returns you to actual experience rather than thoughts about experience. This is the mechanism. This is how it works. You're sitting, paying attention to breath, and you notice your mind has wandered into thoughts. Maybe you're worrying about tomorrow. Maybe you're replaying yesterday. Maybe you're judging yourself. Maybe you're planning, analyzing, remembering, imagining. Whatever the content, you're lost in thought, not present, not experiencing the actual moment, not in your life. Then you notice, you become aware that you've been lost in thought. This noticing is the key moment, the crucial instant, the transformation. In this moment of noticing, you're no longer lost. You're aware, you're present. You recognize you were thinking. And in recognizing this, you're no longer completely identified with the thoughts. You're the awareness, noticing the thoughts. This creates space, creates distance, creates the possibility of choice, and then you return gently, without judgment. You return attention to breath, to sensation, to the present moment, to actual experience, to your life. This is the practice. This simple movement, lost in thought, noticing, returning, over and over, hundreds of times in a single sitting, thousands of times over weeks of practice. Each time you notice and return, you're training attention, training the capacity to be present, training awareness. You're strengthening the ability to recognize when you're lost in thought, strengthening the ability to return to present experience, building the skill of being present, of being in your life rather than in your head. This reduces suffering because the present moment is usually okay, usually tolerable, usually not the catastrophe your thoughts suggest. Right now, in this actual moment, things are usually manageable. You can breathe, you can feel sensation, you can perceive your environment. Whatever is actually happening right now is something you can handle, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's difficult, even if it's painful. The actual present moment experience is something you can be with, can tolerate, can handle. It's not the overwhelming catastrophe that thoughts make it seem. Suffering is often in the thoughts about the moment, not in the moment itself. You're sitting in a chair, breathing, alive, and your thoughts are telling you that everything is terrible, that you're inadequate, that the future is hopeless, that you can't handle this, that you're failing, that disaster is imminent. These thoughts create suffering, real suffering, intense suffering, but the thoughts are not reality, are not the present moment, are not what's actually happening. What's actually happening is you're sitting in a chair, breathing. That's the reality. That's the present moment. And that moment is okay, is tolerable, is something you can be with. Mindfulness trains you to recognize this distinction, to notice when you're lost in thoughts that create suffering, to return to actual experience, to the present moment. That's usually okay. This doesn't mean the present moment is always pleasant. Sometimes the present moment contains pain, contains difficulty, contains discomfort. But even painful present moments are different from thoughts about pain. Actual physical pain right now is something you can be with, can feel, can breathe with. But thoughts about pain, thoughts that this pain is unbearable, that it will never end, that you can't handle it, that it means something terrible, these thoughts create additional suffering on top of the pain. They create resistance, create fear, create the sense that you're overwhelmed. Mindfulness helps you feel the pain without adding the layer of suffering created by thoughts about the pain. Mindfulness also creates distance from thoughts, creates the capacity to observe thoughts rather than being identified with them. This is the second major mechanism. This is profound, transformative, liberating. Normally, you are completely identified with your thoughts. You don't experience them as thoughts. You experience them as reality, as truth, as you. When the thought, I am inadequate, arises, you don't experience it as a thought. You experience it as a fact, as reality, as who you are. The thought and your sense of self are completely fused. There's no space, no distance, no awareness that this is just a thought, just a mental event, just something arising in consciousness. Mindfulness creates that space, creates that distance, creates that awareness. You begin to notice, I'm having the thought that I'm inadequate, rather than I am inadequate. This distinction is profound, changes everything, changes your relationship to thoughts. In the first version, I am inadequate. The thought is reality, is truth, is who you are. You're fused with it. It controls you, determines your emotional state, determines your behavior. You believe it completely. No question, no space, no choice. In the second version, I'm having the thought that I'm inadequate. The thought is recognized as a thought, as a mental event, as something arising in awareness, something that can be observed. This creates space, creates distance, creates the recognition that thoughts are not facts, not reality, not truth, just mental events, arising and passing, sometimes useful, sometimes accurate, sometimes complete nonsense, but not inherently true, not requiring belief, not requiring action, not controlling you unless you give them that power. This realization is liberating, completely liberating. Frees you from automatic belief in every thought, frees you from being controlled by thought content. You realize you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness in which thoughts arise. You are the space in which thoughts appear and disappear. The thoughts are like weather passing through the sky of awareness, sometimes pleasant, sometimes unpleasant, sometimes intense, sometimes subtle, but always changing, always passing, never permanent, never what you are. This doesn't mean thoughts aren't important. Some thoughts are useful, contain important information, help you plan, problem solve, understand, communicate. But many thoughts are not useful, are repetitive, are distorted, are anxious projections, are depressive ruminations, are harsh self-judgments, are catastrophic predictions. These thoughts create suffering, and you don't need to believe them, don't need to be controlled by them, don't need to let them determine your experience. You can observe them, notice them, let them pass, like clouds passing through sky, like sounds passing through space, arising and dissolving, present and then gone. Mindfulness practice is simple, deceptively simple. Sit quietly. Choose a place, any place, a chair, a cushion, your bed, anywhere you can sit relatively comfortably without being disturbed. Sit with a posture that's upright but not rigid, alert but relaxed. You want to be awake, present, not falling asleep, but also not tense, not straining, just sitting, just being, present and aware. Pay attention to breath. This is the anchor, the object of attention, the place you return to. You're not trying to breathe in any special way, not controlling breath, not making it deeper or slower or different, just observing the breath as it is, feeling the sensation of breathing, maybe at the nostrils, the coolness of air entering, the warmth of air leaving, maybe at the chest, the rising and falling, the expansion and contraction, maybe at the belly, the gentle movement with each breath. Pick one place, one location, and rest attention there on the sensation of breathing. When your mind wanders, and it will wander constantly, immediately, repeatedly, notice and return. That's it. That's the entire practice. Not achieving a blank mind, not stopping thoughts, not having some special experience, just noticing when you're lost in thought and returning to present moment, to breath, to sensation, to now. You'll notice you're thinking about dinner, return to breath. You'll notice you're planning tomorrow, return to breath. You'll notice you're judging yourself for being distracted, return to breath. You'll notice you're remembering something from the past, return to breath, again and again, hundreds of times. This is not failure. This is the practice. Noticing and returning. This is how you train attention, how you build the capacity to be present. The mind will wander. This is what minds do. Minds think, generate thoughts, create narratives. This is their nature. This is their function. You're not trying to stop this, not trying to empty the mind, not trying to achieve some thought-free state. You're simply training the capacity to notice when you're lost in thought, to recognize thinking as thinking, to return to present experience. This noticing and returning, this is what trains attention, trains the capacity to be present, trains awareness. And these capacities reduce suffering. This is not speculation. This is measured. When you can notice you're lost in anxious thoughts about the future, you can return to the present moment. When you can recognize you're dwelling on past regrets, you can return to now. When you can observe self-critical thoughts as thoughts rather than truth, you can let them pass without believing them. These capacities directly reduce suffering, directly interrupt the mental patterns that create anxiety, depression, rumination, worry. This is how mindfulness works. This is the mechanism. This is what the practice trains. Mindfulness practice also increases happiness, creates well-being, not through achieving some special state, not through becoming enlightened, not through having extraordinary experiences, but through being present, through experiencing your actual life, through not missing your life while lost in thought. When you're present, you can actually taste your food, actually see the sky, actually hear music, actually feel warmth, actually experience connection. You're here, in your life, experiencing it directly. This is inherently more satisfying than living in your head, living in thoughts, living in mental representations. Direct experience is richer, fuller, more vivid, more real, more alive. Mindfulness returns you to this direct experience. This is itself a form of happiness, a form of well-being, being present, being awake, being alive in your actual life. Research shows that even brief mindfulness practice helps. You don't need years of intensive retreat, don't need to become a meditation master, don't need to meditate for hours daily. Even brief practice creates measurable benefit. 8 weeks of practice, 8 weeks, 20 minutes a day. This creates measurable changes, measurable reduction in anxiety and depression, measurable increase in happiness and life satisfaction, measurable changes in brain structure, thickening in prefrontal cortex, reduced reactivity in amygdala, changes in brain regions associated with attention, emotion regulation, self-awareness. The effects are modest, not magical, not transformative overnight, but real, reliable, meaningful. Mindfulness doesn't solve all problems, doesn't eliminate all suffering, doesn't make life perfect, but it helps, consistently, measurably, significantly. People who practice mindfulness report lower levels of anxiety, lower levels of depression, greater life satisfaction, greater sense of well-being, better emotion regulation, improved attention, better relationships. These are not anecdotes, not testimonials. These are research findings, measured outcomes, statistical effects, real changes. The research is extensive, rigorous, replicated. Mindfulness-based interventions have been tested in hundreds of studies, with thousands of participants, across different populations, different settings, different measures. The results are consistent. Mindfulness helps, reduces psychological distress, increases well-being. The effect sizes are modest, comparable to other psychological interventions, not miracle cures, but meaningful improvements, real reductions in suffering, real increases in happiness. If you want to be happier, practice mindfulness. This is an evidence-based recommendation. This is not faith, not philosophy, not spirituality. This is science. This is data. This is what works. Start small, very small, 5 minutes a day. Even 5 minutes creates benefit. 10 minutes is better. 20 minutes better still. But start with what's sustainable, what you'll actually do. Consistency matters more than duration. Better to sit 5 minutes every day than 20 minutes occasionally. The daily practice creates habit, creates accumulation, creates training over time. Just sitting, paying attention, noticing when your mind wanders and returning. This is enough. This creates benefit, real benefit, measurable benefit, Not instantly, not dramatically, not magically, but over time, over weeks and months of practice. You'll notice you're less reactive, less caught in thoughts, more able to be present, more aware of your mental patterns, more able to let thoughts pass without believing them, more able to return to the present moment. These capacities accumulate, build, strengthen, and they reduce suffering, increase happiness, create well being through training attention, through being present, through experiencing life directly rather than through the filter of constant thinking. This is what mindfulness does. This is how it works. This is what the research shows. This is what you can do. Starting now, starting today, 5 minutes, sit, breathe, notice, return. This is the practice. This is what helps. This is real. This is available to you right now. Helping others creates happiness. This seems counterintuitive, seems backwards. Seems like giving away resources should deplete you, should make you less happy, should leave you with less. But the opposite is true, completely true, consistently true, measurably true. People who help others report greater happiness, greater life satisfaction, greater sense of meaning, greater well-being. Giving creates more happiness than receiving. This is not philosophy, not moral teaching, not religious instruction. This is measured, is replicated, is consistent across cultures and contexts. This is data. This is science. This is real. Why? The mechanism is understood. This is not mystery, not speculation, not vague theory. Scientists understand why helping others creates happiness, understand the psychological mechanisms, the neurobiological processes, the social dynamics, the evolutionary roots. This understanding comes from decades of research, from hundreds of studies, from careful measurement, from rigorous testing. The mechanism is clear, is documented, is real. Helping others connects you, creates relationship, creates bond, creates shared humanity. This connection is the first mechanism, the first pathway through which helping creates happiness. When you help someone, you see them, really see them, not as abstraction, not as category, not as stranger, but as person, as human being with needs, feelings, experiences. You see their situation, their difficulty, their need, and you respond, you help. In this moment of helping, something profound happens. Connection, real connection, human connection. You see them, they see you. You matter to them in this moment. You're the person helping, the person who saw their need, the person who responded, the person who cared enough to help. They matter to you. You're helping them, thinking about them, acting for their benefit. This mutual mattering creates connection, creates relationship, creates bond between you. This connection, even brief, even momentary, even with a stranger, satisfies a fundamental human need, one of the deepest human needs, the most essential psychological needs, the need to belong, to connect, to be part of something larger than yourself, to be in relationship, to matter to others, to have others matter to you. This need is not optional, not luxury, not something some people have and others don't. This is universal, fundamental, essential to human well-being. All humans need connection, need relationship, need to belong. This need is as fundamental as the need for food, water, shelter. Without connection, humans suffer deeply, profoundly, consistently. Humans are social animals. This is not metaphor, not poetic language. This is biological fact, evolutionary reality. Humans evolved in groups, small groups of related individuals living together, cooperating, depending on each other for survival. For hundreds of thousands of years, human survival depended absolutely on being part of a group, on maintaining relationships, on cooperation, on mutual support. Individuals who were isolated didn't survive, couldn't survive. Survival required group membership, required connection, required relationship. This shaped human psychology, human neurobiology, human nature. We evolved to need connection, to suffer without it, to be rewarded by it. This evolutionary history means connection is built into human psychology at the deepest level. into human neurobiology, into how our brains work. Our brains are wired for connection, wired to seek it, wired to maintain it, wired to feel good when we have it and feel bad when we don't. Connection activates reward circuits in the brain, creates releases of neurochemicals that make us feel good. Oxytocin, dopamine, endorphins. These chemicals create feelings of warmth, pleasure, satisfaction, happiness. This is why connection feels good, why relationship feels rewarding, why belonging creates happiness. This is biological. This is how we're built. Helping creates connection, direct connection, immediate connection, real connection. When you help someone, you create a moment of shared humanity, a moment where you see them and they see you, where you matter to each other, where you're connected through your interaction, through your help and their need, through your giving and their receiving. This connection satisfies the fundamental need for belonging, for relationship, for mattering, even if the connection is brief, even if it's with a stranger, even if you never see them again. In that moment, there's connection, there's relationship, there's shared humanity, and this connection creates happiness, creates well-being, creates satisfaction at a deep level. Connection is essential, not optional, not bonus, not something that would be nice to have. Essential, fundamental, critical to well-being. Research shows this clearly, consistently, powerfully. The quality of relationships is the strongest predictor of happiness, of life satisfaction, of well-being, of health, of longevity. People with strong relationships are happier, much happier. They're healthier. They live longer. They cope better with stress. They experience less depression and anxiety. They report greater life satisfaction, greater sense of meaning, greater overall well-being. The effect of relationships on well-being is enormous, is one of the strongest effects in all of psychology, is more important than money, achievement, status, possessions, more important than almost anything else. And isolation is devastating. People who lack connection suffer deeply, consistently, measurably. Loneliness is associated with depression, anxiety, poor health, increased mortality risk, decreased life satisfaction, decreased well-being across every measure. Isolation is as harmful to health as smoking, as harmful as obesity, as harmful as major risk factors that we take seriously. Connection is not luxury, is necessity, is fundamental to human well-being. And helping creates connection, creates relationship, creates the sense of belonging. This is why helping creates happiness. This is the first mechanism. Helping also creates the sense that you matter, that you're contributing, that your existence makes a difference. This is the second mechanism. This is profound, essential, fundamental to well-being. People need to feel that they matter, that their actions have impact, that their existence contributes something, that they're not irrelevant, not invisible, not pointless, that their life has impact, has meaning, has value. This need is deep, is powerful, is fundamental to human psychology. People need to feel that they matter, that they make a difference, that their existence is not futile. Without this sense of mattering, life feels empty, feels pointless, feels meaningless. Depression often involves the feeling that nothing you do matters, that you don't matter, that your existence is irrelevant, that you could disappear and nothing would change. This feeling is devastating, is at the core of much suffering, of much unhappiness, of much despair. Humans need to feel that they matter, that their actions have impact, that their existence makes a difference. This is not vanity, not ego, not selfishness. This is fundamental human need, essential to well-being, essential to happiness, essential to finding life worth living. Helping provides this directly, immediately, tangibly, concretely. When you help someone, you see the effect, you see the impact of your action, you see that you made a difference. You helped someone who needed help. You solved a problem. You relieved suffering. You created something positive. You improved a situation. You made someone's life better, even slightly, even temporarily. This creates the sense that you matter, that your actions have impact, that your existence contributes, that you made a difference in the world. You help someone and you see the effect. This is immediate, direct, tangible. You hold the door and someone thanks you. You help carry something and someone's burden is lighter. You give money and someone eats. You volunteer and you see people helped. You teach and someone learns. You comfort and someone feels better. This direct feedback creates the sense of efficacy, the sense that you can affect the world, that you're not powerless, that your actions matter, that you have agency, that you can make things better. You know you made a difference. This knowledge is powerful, is satisfying, is meaningful. You're not wondering whether you matter, not hoping that maybe you contribute something, not uncertain about whether your existence has value. You know, you saw it, you experienced it, you helped someone, and you saw the result. This knowledge creates a sense of efficacy, of competence, of mattering. You matter. You know you matter. You saw yourself make a difference. This is not abstract, not theoretical, not hoped for. This is experienced. This is real. This is known. This creates a sense of efficacy, of competence, of mattering. These are fundamental psychological needs, needs identified in self-determination theory, one of the major theories of human motivation and well-being. Self-determination theory identifies three fundamental psychological needs: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Competence is the need to feel effective, capable, able to achieve desired outcomes, able to make a difference. Helping directly satisfies this need, directly provides this sense of competence. You helped, you succeeded in helping, you were effective, you made a difference. This satisfaction of fundamental need creates well-being, creates happiness, creates life satisfaction. This sense is fundamental to happiness, to well-being, to life satisfaction. People who feel efficacious are happier, much happier. They cope better with stress, experience less depression and anxiety, have greater life satisfaction, feel more meaning and purpose, feel that their life matters. This sense of efficacy, of competence, of mattering is essential to well-being, and helping creates this sense, creates it directly, creates it immediately, creates it tangibly. This is why helping creates happiness. This is the second mechanism. This creates meaning, creates purpose, creates the eudaimonic well-being that sustains happiness. This is the third mechanism. This is perhaps the most important mechanism, the most profound, the most powerful. When you help someone, you're not just helping them. You're not just creating momentary good feeling. You're not just satisfying temporary need. You're creating meaning for yourself, creating purpose, creating the sense that your life is about something larger than yourself, larger than your own comfort, larger than your own pleasure, larger than your own concerns, larger than your own needs and wants and desires. Your life contributes, makes a difference, matters, not just to you, not just for you, but to others, for others, in the world. Your existence has impact beyond yourself, has value beyond your own experience, has meaning beyond your own pleasure or comfort. This is profound. This is what humans need, what humans crave, what creates deep, lasting satisfaction. The sense that life is about something, that it matters, that it contributes, that it has purpose beyond just existing, beyond just getting through days, beyond just pursuing pleasure and avoiding pain. This meaning is more important for lasting happiness than pleasure, than comfort, than achievement. This is crucial. This is counterintuitive. This challenges common assumptions about happiness. Most people think happiness comes from pleasure, from comfort, from getting what you want, from achieving goals, from success, from possessions, from status, from accomplishment. But research shows this is not what creates lasting happiness. This is not what sustains well-being through difficulty. This is not what gives life deep satisfaction. Meaning sustains well-being in a way pleasure cannot. Pleasure is temporary, fleeting, subject to hedonic adaptation. You get something you want and it creates a spike in happiness, a boost in mood, temporary satisfaction, but then you adapt. You get used to it. It becomes normal, becomes baseline. The pleasure fades, the satisfaction diminishes. You return to where you were before, and then you need something else, something new, something different, to get another boost, another spike, another temporary satisfaction. This is hedonic adaptation. This is the hedonic treadmill. Pursuing pleasure that doesn't create lasting happiness. Research on well-being distinguishes between hedonic happiness and eudaimonic happiness. These are two fundamentally different types of well-being, two different sources of happiness, two different paths to satisfaction. Hedonic happiness is pleasure, comfort, feeling good, getting what you want, enjoying pleasant experiences, avoiding unpleasant experiences, maximizing pleasure and minimizing pain. This creates temporary boosts in mood, temporary satisfaction, temporary happiness, but it doesn't last. It fades. You adapt. You need more. You're on the hedonic treadmill. Hedonic adaptation returns you to baseline. This is one of the most robust findings in the science of well-being, one of the most consistently replicated, one of the most important for understanding happiness. People adapt to changes in circumstances, to improvements in life, to getting what they want. Major positive events, winning the lottery, getting promoted, buying a house, achieving goals, create temporary boosts in happiness. But within months, sometimes within weeks, people return to their baseline level of happiness. The pleasure fades, the satisfaction diminishes. They've adapted to the new circumstance. It's become normal, become baseline. They need something else to feel happy again. You need more. You need different. You're on a hedonic treadmill, pursuing pleasure that doesn't create lasting happiness. You achieve something and feel happy temporarily, then adapt, need to achieve something else. You buy something and feel satisfied temporarily, then adapt, need to buy something else. You experience pleasure and feel good temporarily, then adapt, need more pleasure. The treadmill never stops. You're always pursuing the next thing, the next achievement, the next purchase, the next pleasure, thinking that this next thing will finally make you happy, will finally create lasting satisfaction, but it doesn't. You adapt. You return to baseline. You need more. Eudaimonic happiness is meaning, purpose, growth, contribution, connection, living according to values, pursuing goals that matter, contributing to something larger than yourself, growing as a person, connecting deeply with others, living in alignment with what you value. This creates deeper, more lasting satisfaction, more stable well-being, more enduring happiness. This is not subject to hedonic adaptation in the same way. This doesn't fade after a few weeks or months. This sustains well-being over time, through difficulty, through challenge, through suffering. This creates deeper, more lasting satisfaction. Satisfaction that doesn't depend on circumstances being perfect, doesn't depend on getting what you want, doesn't depend on constant pleasure. Satisfaction that comes from living in a way that matters, that aligns with values, that contributes, that connects, that has purpose. This satisfaction is more stable, more resilient, more enduring, more deeply rooted. This is eudaimonic well-being. This is what creates lasting happiness. More stable well-being, more enduring happiness. Well-being that persists through difficulty, through challenge, through times when pleasure is unavailable, when comfort is impossible, when circumstances are hard. Meaning allows you to maintain well-being even when things are difficult, even when you're not getting what you want, even when life is hard, because your well-being doesn't depend entirely on circumstances, doesn't depend entirely on pleasure, depends on meaning, on purpose, on living in a way that matters, and that can persist even through difficulty. Helping others creates eudaimonic happiness, creates meaning through contribution, creates purpose through making a difference, creates connection through relationship, creates the sense that your life matters, that it's about something, that it has value beyond just your own pleasure or comfort. When you help others, you're contributing, making a difference, living according to values like compassion, kindness, generosity, connecting with other humans, participating in something larger than yourself. This creates eudaimonic well-being. This creates meaning. This creates purpose. This creates lasting happiness. That your existence has value beyond yourself. This is what people need. What creates lasting happiness. What sustains well-being through difficulty, through challenge, through suffering. Humans need to feel that their existence matters beyond their own experience, beyond their own pleasure, beyond their own comfort, that their life contributes something to the world, to other people, to something larger. This need for meaning is fundamental, is powerful, is essential to well-being. Meaning allows you to endure, allows you to persist, allows you to find value even in difficulty. When life is hard, meaning sustains you. When circumstances are difficult, meaning allows you to persist. When suffering occurs, meaning allows you to endure. Because life is not just about your own comfort, your own pleasure, your own ease. Life is about something larger, something that matters, something that has value, and that something allows you to persist through difficulty, to endure through suffering, to find value even when things are hard. Helping others creates this meaning, creates this purpose, creates this sense that you matter, that your life contributes, that your existence makes a difference. When you help others, your life is not just about you, not just about your own needs and wants and desires. Your life contributes to others, makes a difference to others, matters to others. This creates profound meaning, profound purpose, profound sense that your existence has value. This is why helping creates happiness. This is the mechanism. This is what we need. Research shows that spending money on others creates more happiness than spending money on yourself. This finding brings all three mechanisms together: connection, efficacy, and meaning. When you spend money on others, buying gifts, donating to charity, helping friends, you create connection. You're thinking about them, considering their needs, caring about their happiness. This creates relationship, creates bond. You matter to them, they matter to you. This connection creates happiness. People who spend money on others report greater happiness than people who spend the same amount on themselves. Same money, different outcome. The difference is the act of giving, the contribution, the helping. When you spend on yourself, you get temporary pleasure, temporary satisfaction, subject to hedonic adaptation. When you spend on others, you create connection, efficacy, and meaning. You connect with them. You matter to them. You make a difference. You contribute. This creates happiness that's deeper, more lasting, more meaningful. This is true even for small amounts. The effect doesn't require large sums, doesn't require wealth, doesn't require resources most people don't have. $5 spent on someone else creates more happiness than $5 spent on yourself. $5. Small amount. Amount anyone might have, but spending it on others creates more happiness. The happiness doesn't come from the amount, doesn't come from how much money, doesn't come from the size of the gift, doesn't come from the monetary value. The happiness doesn't come from the amount, comes from the act of giving, from contributing, from helping, from thinking about someone else, from making a difference, from connecting, from mattering, from creating meaning, from all three mechanisms: connection, efficacy, meaning, all created through the simple act of spending money on someone else instead of yourself. This is why giving creates happiness. This is the mechanism. This is how it works. This is what we need. And volunteering increases happiness. People who volunteer regularly report higher life satisfaction, lower depression, greater sense of meaning. This isn't just selection effect. Happy people volunteering more. Studies that introduce volunteering show causation. When people start volunteering, their happiness increases, their sense of meaning increases, their well-being improves. Helping others creates happiness for you, not just for them. For you. This doesn't mean you should ignore your own needs, should sacrifice yourself, should give until depleted. That doesn't work. That creates burnout, creates resentment, creates problems. But helping others, contributing, giving, when done from fullness rather than depletion, creates happiness, creates meaning, creates the sense that your life matters, that you're contributing, that your existence makes a difference. If you want to be happier, help others, volunteer, donate, give time, give attention, give help, give whatever you have to give, not from obligation, not from guilt, but from the recognition that giving creates meaning, creates purpose, creates happiness for them and for you. This is not selfish, is recognition that helping others helps you, that giving creates well-being, that contribution creates satisfaction. Help others, not to get something back, but recognizing that the helping itself creates happiness, creates meaning, creates the sense that your life matters. Acceptance creates peace. This is perhaps the most counterintuitive finding, the most paradoxical truth. Accepting reality as it is, not resisting, not fighting, creates peace, creates happiness, creates well-being. This seems wrong. Seems like acceptance means giving up, means not trying to improve things, means passively accepting bad situations. But this misunderstands acceptance. Acceptance isn't passivity, isn't resignation, isn't giving up. Acceptance is seeing clearly, is recognizing what is letting go of resistance to reality. Most suffering comes from resistance. This is fundamental. This is the core insight, the key understanding that unlocks so much unnecessary pain. Most of your suffering, not all but most, doesn't come from your circumstances, doesn't come from what's happening to you, doesn't come from external events, comes from your relationship to what's happening, comes from your resistance to what is, comes from wanting things to be different than they are. This resistance is the suffering. This fight with reality is what hurts, not reality itself, but your relationship to reality, your resistance to it. From wanting reality to be different than it is. This is constant. This is ongoing. This is the default mode of the human mind. Reality is one way, and you want it to be another way. Things are how they are, and you wish they were different. This person behaves this way. You wish they behaved differently. This situation exists. You wish it didn't. This pain is present. You wish it weren't. This limitation constrains you. You wish you were free. This constant wanting reality to be different creates a state of tension, of conflict, of suffering. You're constantly at war with what is, constantly wishing things were other than they are. This war creates suffering, creates stress, creates unhappiness. From fighting what is, this is active resistance, not just wishing things were different, but fighting against them, struggling against them, resisting them with effort, with energy, with constant mental and emotional pushing against reality. This happens mostly mentally, mostly through thought, through rumination, through replay, through the constant mental argument with reality, thinking about why things shouldn't be this way, thinking about how unfair it is, thinking about how it should be different. This mental fighting is exhausting, is depleting, is suffering. You're spending enormous energy fighting what is, fighting what already is, fighting what cannot be changed by your resistance, from wishing things were other than they are. This seems innocent, seems harmless. Just wishing, just wanting, just preferring. But this wishing creates suffering, because reality is what it is. Doesn't change because you wish it were different. Doesn't transform because you want it to. Reality is reality, independent of your wishes, independent of your wants, independent of your preferences, and wishing it were different while it isn't creates suffering, creates the gap between what is and what you want, creates the tension between reality and desire. This gap is suffering. This tension is pain. This resistance creates suffering, not might create, not can create, not sometimes creates, does create, always creates, consistently, reliably, inevitably, universally. Resistance to reality creates suffering. This is not philosophical speculation, not theoretical concept, not abstract idea. This is practical truth. This is experiential reality. This is observable fact. You can verify this in your own life, in your own experience, in your own moment-to-moment awareness. Look at your own suffering, examine your own pain, investigate your own distress. Where does it come from? What creates it? What sustains it? How much of it comes from resistance, from wanting things to be different, from fighting what is, from wishing reality were not what it is, from pushing against circumstances, from rejecting what's happening, from struggling against what exists. Look carefully, look honestly, look without judgment. Just observe. Most of your suffering comes from resistance. Maybe all of it. Maybe every bit of psychological suffering, every moment of emotional pain, every instance of mental distress comes from some form of resistance to what is. This is not exaggeration. This is not overstatement. This is observable truth. The suffering that's purely from circumstances, from physical pain, from external events, is usually manageable, usually tolerable, usually bearable. Physical pain exists, difficult circumstances exist, loss exists, disappointment exists. These things are real. These things hurt, but the hurt from these things without resistance is different, is tolerable, is something you can be with, can breathe with, can experience without breaking. Pain is one thing. Suffering is another. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional, or at least much of it is optional. Much of it comes not from the pain itself, but from resistance to the pain. The suffering that becomes unbearable is the suffering you add through resistance, through the mental and emotional fight with what is, through the constant wish that things were different, through the internal struggle against reality. This added suffering is what makes pain unbearable, what makes difficulty intolerable. What makes circumstances feel impossible? The circumstances themselves might be difficult, might be painful, might be unpleasant, but your resistance makes them unbearable. Your fight makes them intolerable. Your wish that they were different makes them impossible to accept. This is the suffering you add. This is the second arrow. This is the additional layer of pain created not by reality but by your response to reality. The first arrow is what happens, the circumstance, the event. The pain, the difficulty, the loss. This arrow hurts. This is real pain. But then comes the second arrow, your response, your resistance, your fight, your judgment, your wish that the first arrow hadn't happened. This second arrow is your doing, is created by you, is optional. And this second arrow often hurts more than the first, often creates more suffering than the original pain, often makes the situation unbearable when it was merely difficult. Through the constant wish that things were different. This is exhausting, depleting, draining. You're constantly wishing, constantly wanting, constantly hoping that reality is not what it is, that circumstances are different, that the past was different, that the present is different, that the future will be different. This constant wishing creates a state of perpetual dissatisfaction, perpetual discontent, perpetual suffering, because reality is what it is, and your wishing doesn't change it. Your wishing just keeps you in a state of resistance, in a state of fighting, in a state of suffering. Creates stress. Resistance creates physiological stress, real stress, measurable stress, biological stress. Not just mental or emotional distress, but actual physiological activation. Creates the stress response, the activation of fight or flight, the sympathetic nervous system activation, the release of stress hormones, the preparation for danger. You're fighting reality, and your body responds as if you're fighting an actual threat, as if you're in danger, as if something is attacking you, as if you need to defend yourself or escape. Your nervous system doesn't distinguish between fighting a real threat and fighting reality, doesn't distinguish between resisting an actual danger and resisting circumstances, doesn't know that you're just mentally resisting, just emotionally fighting, just psychologically struggling. It responds as if the threat is real, as if the danger is physical, as if you need physiological activation to survive. So it activates, your nervous system activates, your stress response engages, your body prepares for fight or flight. Your heart rate increases, blood pumps faster, carries oxygen to muscles, prepares for action, for fighting or fleeing. Your heart pounds, your pulse races, your cardiovascular system activates, all because you're resisting, all because you're fighting reality in your mind. Your body doesn't know this fight is mental, responds as if it's physical, activates as if you need to run or fight. This activation is real, is physiological, is measurable. Your heart rate actually increases when you resist reality, when you fight what is, when you wish things were different. Your muscles tense throughout your body, in your shoulders, your neck, your back, your jaw, your face. Muscles tighten, prepare for action, for fighting, for defending, for resisting. This tension is real, is physical, is uncomfortable, often painful, creates headaches, creates backaches, creates chronic pain, creates physical discomfort that persists. That becomes background tension you carry constantly, all from resistance, all from fighting reality in your mind, your body manifesting your mental resistance as physical tension. Your stress hormones elevate. Cortisol, adrenaline, hormones meant for short-term danger, for immediate threat, for temporary emergency. These hormones mobilize resources, increase energy, sharpen focus, prepare you for action, for survival, for dealing with threat. They're designed for brief activation, for temporary danger, for situations that resolve quickly. Fight the threat or flee from it. Then the danger passes. The hormones decrease. The system deactivates. You return to baseline. This is healthy stress response, adaptive stress response that helps you survive. But when you're constantly resisting reality, these hormones stay elevated, stay high, stay activated, because you're constantly fighting, constantly resisting, constantly struggling. The threat never passes. The danger never ends, because the threat is reality itself. And reality is always present, always happening, always here. So your stress hormones stay elevated, stay chronically high, stay constantly activated. This is not what these systems were designed for. Not what they can sustain healthily, not what your body can tolerate long term. All because you're resisting what is, all because you're fighting reality, all because you're wishing things were different, not because you're in actual danger, not because you're facing actual threat, not because anything is actually attacking you, but because you're mentally, emotionally, psychologically resisting what is, and your body responds to this mental resistance with physical stress response, with real physiological activation, with actual biological changes. This is not metaphor, not figure of speech. This is measurable biological reality. This physiological stress is not trivial, not harmless, not something you can ignore without consequence. Creates real problems, real health issues, real suffering. Chronic stress is associated with cardiovascular disease, with high blood pressure, with heart disease, with weakened immune function, with digestive problems, with sleep problems, with chronic pain, with inflammation, with accelerated aging, with increased risk of nearly every health problem. Chronic stress is devastating to health, is one of the major risk factors for illness, for disease, for poor health outcomes. Chronic resistance creates chronic stress. This is the connection. This is the mechanism. When you constantly resist reality, constantly fight what is, constantly wish things were different, you create chronic stress. Chronic physiological activation. Chronic elevation of stress hormones. Chronic tension in muscles. Chronic activation of cardiovascular system. This chronic activation wears you down, damages your body, creates health problems. This is real. This is measurable. This is documented in medical research. Creates the constant activation of systems meant for temporary danger. Your stress response evolved for brief threats, for immediate dangers, for temporary emergencies, chase by predator, fight with rival, escape from danger. These situations last minutes, maybe hours. Then they end, the danger passes. You survive or you don't. Either way, the acute stress ends, the activation stops, the hormones decrease, the system rests. This is how stress response is meant to work. Brief activation, then deactivation, brief stress, then recovery. But chronic resistance creates chronic activation. Systems that should activate briefly stay activated constantly. Hormones that should spike temporarily stay elevated chronically. Responses meant for minutes persist for hours, days, months, years. This is not sustainable, not healthy, not what your body can handle. Creates the wearing down of your body through constant activation, like running your car engine constantly at high RPM, like keeping your emergency brake engaged while driving, like activating emergency systems continuously. They break down, they fail, they create damage. This is suffering, real suffering, physical suffering created by mental resistance. Your mind resisting reality creates physical suffering in your body. Your psychological struggle manifests as physiological damage. Your emotional fight becomes physical pain. This is not separate, not unrelated. Mind and body are not separate. What happens in mind affects body. What you do mentally creates physical consequences. Resistance in mind creates stress in body. Chronic resistance creates chronic stress. Chronic stress creates suffering. Real, physical, measurable suffering. Creates unhappiness. Resistance makes happiness impossible. Completely impossible. Utterly impossible. Makes contentment impossible. Makes peace impossible. Makes satisfaction impossible. Makes well-being impossible. How can you be happy while fighting what is? While constantly struggling against reality, while perpetually wishing things were different, while endlessly resisting circumstances? You can't. It's impossible. The two states are incompatible. Happiness and resistance cannot coexist. Peace and fighting cannot coexist. Contentment and wishing things were different cannot coexist. Happiness requires some degree of acceptance, some degree of okayness with what is, some degree of peace with reality, some degree of letting things be as they are. You don't have to like everything, don't have to approve everything, don't have to want everything to stay as it is. But you need some basic acceptance of what is, some basic recognition that this is reality right now, some basic letting go of the fight. Without this, happiness is impossible, completely impossible. You're fighting reality, and that fight prevents happiness, prevents peace, prevents contentment, prevents well-being. Resistance prevents this, prevents acceptance, prevents peace, prevents the okayness with what is that allows happiness, keeps you in a state of fighting, of struggling, of wishing, of wanting things to be different, keeps you focused on how things should be instead of how they are, keeps you rejecting reality instead of accepting it. This rejection, this resistance, this fight makes happiness impossible, makes peace impossible, makes contentment impossible, keeps you in a state of wanting, of dissatisfaction, of unhappiness, perpetual wanting, perpetual dissatisfaction, perpetual unhappiness, because you want things to be different, because you're dissatisfied with what is, because you're unhappy with reality. This state persists as long as you resist, as long as you fight, as long as you wish things were different. The wanting never stops. The dissatisfaction never ends. The unhappiness continues, not because circumstances don't change, but because you keep resisting whatever circumstances are, keep fighting whatever reality is, keep wishing things were different than they are. Not because circumstances are bad. This is crucial. This is the key insight. This is what changes everything when you really understand it. The suffering is not primarily from circumstances, not primarily from what's happening, not primarily from external reality, but from your relationship to what's happening, from your response to circumstances, from your resistance to reality. The circumstances might be difficult, might be unpleasant, might be painful, but the suffering, the unhappiness, the distress comes not primarily from the circumstances, but from your resistance to them, from your fight with them, from your wish that they were different. Two people can experience the same situation, identical situation, same circumstances, same events, same difficulties, same challenges. One resists, fights, wishes it were different, struggles against it. The other accepts, sees it clearly, lets it be what it is, works with it. The one who resists suffers more, much more, significantly more, not because their situation is worse, not because they have harder circumstances, not because their difficulties are greater. Their situation is identical, exactly the same events, same challenges, same difficulties, but they suffer more, suffer significantly more. Why? Not because their situation is worse. Their situation is identical, exactly the same external reality, same circumstances, same events, but one suffers more. The difference is not in the situation. The difference is in the response to the situation, in the relationship to circumstances, in the acceptance or resistance of what is. One person accepts, the other resists. Same situation, different response, different amount of suffering. This proves the suffering comes not primarily from the situation, but from the response to the situation, from the resistance or acceptance of what is. The one who accepts experiences the situation without the added layer of resistance, without the fight, without the struggle, without the wish that things were different, without the mental and emotional battle with reality. They experience the difficulty, experience the pain, experience the challenge, but they don't add the second arrow. Don't add the suffering that comes from resistance. Don't add the pain that comes from fighting. Don't add the distress that comes from wishing things were different. Their suffering is less, significantly less, measurably less, not because their situation is better, not because they have easier circumstances, not because their difficulties are smaller, but because their relationship to the situation is different, because they're not resisting, not fighting, not adding the second arrow. They're experiencing what is without the additional suffering created by resistance. This doesn't mean they feel nothing, doesn't mean they're not affected, doesn't mean the situation is easy, but the suffering is less, the pain is more bearable, the difficulty is more manageable, because they're not fighting it. But because you're fighting it, the fight itself is the suffering, the resistance itself is the pain, the struggle itself is the distress. You're adding suffering to the situation through your fight with it, through your resistance to it, through your struggle against it. The situation contains whatever difficulty it contains. That's real. That's the first arrow. That's what's happening. But then you add your response, your resistance, your fight, your judgment, your wish that it were different. This addition is the second arrow. This addition is optional. This addition is created by you. This addition is your suffering. The situation is difficult, contains real difficulty, real challenge, real pain. This is the first arrow, but your resistance makes it unbearable, makes it intolerable, makes it impossible, turns difficult into unbearable, turns challenging into impossible, turns painful into excruciating. The situation is painful, contains real pain, real hurt, real difficulty, but your fight makes it excruciating, makes it overwhelming, makes it devastating, turns pain into agony, turns hurt into devastation, turns difficulty into catastrophe. The situation is unpleasant, contains real unpleasantness, real discomfort, real difficulty, but your wish that it were different makes it intolerable, makes it unbearable, makes it impossible to accept, turns unpleasant into intolerable, turns difficult into unbearable, turns uncomfortable into impossible. The wish itself creates suffering. The constant comparison between what is and what you wish were true creates suffering. The gap between reality and preference creates suffering. This is all added, all optional, all created by resistance. Resisting it, pushing against it, struggling against it, fighting against it, trying to make it not be what it is. This is what you do when you resist. This is the mechanism of resistance. Pushing against reality, struggling against circumstances, fighting against what is, trying through mental and emotional effort to make reality different, to make what is not be what it is, to make what happened not have happened, to make what exists not exist. This is futile, is pointless, is impossible. You cannot make reality not be what it is through resistance, cannot change what has already happened through wishing, cannot transform present circumstances through fighting, cannot alter facts through struggling, cannot modify what is through rejecting it. Reality is what it is what it is, has already happened, already exists, already is. Your resistance doesn't change this, doesn't alter this, doesn't modify this, doesn't help, doesn't improve anything. Just adds suffering, adds stress, adds the pain of fighting the unchangeable. Reality is what it is. This is fundamental truth, basic truth, undeniable truth. What is, is. What happened, happened. What exists, exists. This is reality. This is fact. This is truth. Your opinions about it don't change it. Your preferences don't alter it. Your wishes don't modify it. Your resistance doesn't affect it. Reality is what it is, regardless of your response to it, regardless of whether you accept it or resist it, regardless of whether you like it or hate it, regardless of whether you want it or don't want it. Reality is what it is. Already is what it is, before you respond, before you resist, before you fight, before you wish it were different. Reality is already what it is. Your response comes after. Your resistance comes after reality. Cannot change what already is. Can only add suffering to your experience of what is. This is crucial. This is liberating when understood. Your resistance doesn't change reality, cannot change reality, just changes your experience of reality, makes your experience more painful, more difficult, more distressing, adds suffering without changing circumstances. Your resistance doesn't change it. This is hard to accept, hard to believe. You feel like your resistance must do something, must have some effect, must help somehow, but it doesn't. It doesn't change reality, doesn't change what happened, doesn't change what is, only changes your experience, makes your experience worse, makes your suffering greater, makes your pain more intense, without changing the circumstances you're resisting. This is the futility of resistance. Fighting what cannot be changed through fighting. Struggling against what your struggle cannot alter. Doesn't help. Resistance doesn't help. Doesn't improve the situation, doesn't make things better, doesn't solve problems, doesn't change circumstances, doesn't reduce difficulty, doesn't eliminate pain, just adds suffering, just creates stress, just makes everything harder, just makes you more miserable, without helping, without improving anything, without changing anything except making your experience worse. This is what resistance does. This is all resistance does. Adds suffering without helping, creates pain without changing circumstances, makes things worse without making anything better. Just adds suffering. This is all resistance accomplishes. All it does, all it creates. Adds suffering to whatever situation exists. Adds pain to whatever difficulty is present. Adds stress to whatever challenge you face. Adds the suffering of fighting. Adds the pain of resisting. Adds the stress of wishing things were different, adds the distress of constant wanting, adds the unhappiness of perpetual dissatisfaction. This is what resistance creates. This is what resistance contributes. Just suffering, just pain, just stress, just distress, nothing helpful, nothing beneficial, nothing constructive, just suffering. Adds stress. The physiological stress discussed earlier, the activation of stress response, the elevation of stress hormones, the tension in muscles, the increased heart rate, the chronic activation of systems meant for temporary danger. All this stress added to whatever situation exists, making everything harder, making everything more difficult, making everything more overwhelming, adding physical suffering to whatever mental or emotional or situational difficulty exists. This is what resistance does. Adds stress, adds suffering, makes everything worse. Adds the pain of fighting the unchangeable. This is perhaps the most painful aspect, the most futile suffering, the most pointless pain, fighting what cannot be changed through fighting, struggling against what your struggle cannot alter, resisting what your resistance cannot modify. This is the pain of futile effort, of pointless struggle, of meaningless fight, fighting the unchangeable, resisting the inevitable, struggling against the immovable. This hurts. This is exhausting, this is defeating, this is demoralizing, and it accomplishes nothing, changes nothing, helps nothing, just creates pain, just creates suffering, just creates the anguish of futile struggle against unchangeable reality. Wishing it were different, this mental activity, this constant thought pattern, this if only, if only, if only, if only things were different, if only this hadn't happened, if only circumstances were other than they are. This wishing is suffering. Is the mind creating pain through comparison between what is and what you want, between reality and desire? This comparison creates suffering, creates dissatisfaction, creates unhappiness. Not because reality is bad, but because you're comparing it to something else, to something imagined, to something that isn't, and finding reality lacking, finding it insufficient, finding it wrong. This comparison is the suffering. This resistance is the suffering, not the primary cause of suffering, not the only source of pain, but a major source, maybe the major source. The suffering you add to situations through resistance, through fighting, through wishing things were different. This is optional suffering, is unnecessary suffering, is suffering you create, and therefore suffering you can reduce, can release, can let go of through acceptance, through letting go of resistance, through changing your relationship to what is, not the situation itself. The situation is what it is, contains whatever difficulty it contains, creates whatever challenges it creates. This is real. This is actual. This can be genuinely difficult, genuinely painful, genuinely challenging. This is not denied, not minimized, not dismissed. The situation is real, but the situation is just the situation, is just what's happening. The suffering you experience is not just the situation, is your relationship to the situation, is how you're relating to it, accepting it or resisting it, being with it or fighting it, recognizing it as reality or wishing it were different. This relationship determines much of your suffering. The situation is what it is. This is fact. This is reality. This is what's actually happening. The situation has whatever characteristics it has, whatever difficulties it presents, whatever challenges it creates. This is given. This is actual. This is real. You didn't choose this situation, didn't want this situation, didn't create this situation, but this situation is what it is your current reality, is what's actually happening. This is not negotiable, not changeable through wishing, not transformable through resistance. The situation is what it is. This is the starting point. This is reality. The suffering comes from your relationship to it. This is variable. This is where you have agency. This is where choice exists. You cannot always choose your circumstances, cannot always choose what happens to you, cannot always choose your situation, but you can choose your relationship to your situation, can choose how you relate to what's happening, can choose acceptance or resistance, can choose to be with what is or to fight what is. This choice determines much of your suffering, determines whether you experience just the difficulty of the situation or the difficulty plus the added suffering of resistance. From your resistance to it, when you resist, when you fight, when you wish things were different, you add suffering, add stress, add unhappiness. The situation remains the same. Your resistance doesn't change the situation, doesn't improve circumstances, just adds suffering, adds the pain of fighting the unchangeable, adds the stress of constant tension, adds the unhappiness of constant dissatisfaction. This added suffering is significant, is sometimes greater than the suffering from the situation itself. You're creating suffering through your relationship to the situation, through your resistance, through your fight with reality. Acceptance doesn't mean you like the situation. This is a crucial distinction. This is what people misunderstand about acceptance. They think acceptance means approval, means liking, means thinking something is good. But acceptance doesn't mean any of these things. Acceptance means recognizing what is, means acknowledging reality, means letting go of the fight with what's actually happening. You can accept something you don't like, can accept something you think is wrong, can accept something you wish were different. Acceptance is not about liking, not about approving, not about thinking something is good. Acceptance is about recognizing what is. Doesn't mean you think it's good. You can accept something and think it's terrible, can recognize reality and think reality is wrong, can acknowledge what is and wish it were different. These are not contradictory, not incompatible. You can hold both, can accept what is and want it to change, can recognize reality and work toward different reality. The acceptance is of current reality, of what is now, of what's actually happening now. This doesn't mean you think current reality is good, think it should stay this way, think change is wrong. You can accept current reality and work for different future reality. These are compatible, are both necessary, are both part of skillful living. Doesn't mean you won't try to change it. This is perhaps the biggest misconception about acceptance. People think acceptance means passivity, means giving up, means not trying to improve things. But acceptance doesn't mean any of this. Acceptance is compatible with action, with effort, with working to change things. You can accept current reality and work to create different reality, can recognize what is and work toward what could be, can acknowledge present circumstances and work to change future circumstances. Acceptance and action are not opposites, are not contradictory, are complementary, are both necessary. You can accept reality and work to change it. This seems paradoxical, seems contradictory. How can you accept something and try to change it? But these operate at different levels. Acceptance is about present reality, about what is now, about acknowledging and recognizing current circumstances. Action is about future reality, about what could be, about working toward different circumstances. You accept what is while working toward what could be. Accept current reality while working to create different reality. This is not contradictory, is skillful, is wise, is how effective change happens. These aren't contradictory, they're complementary. They work together. Acceptance is the foundation for effective action. You must see clearly what is before you can effectively work to change it. Must recognize current reality before you can create different reality. Must accept where you are before you can effectively move toward where you want to be. Acceptance without action can become passivity, can become resignation, can become giving up. Action without acceptance can become denial, can become fighting reality, can become ineffective flailing. You need both. Need acceptance and action. Need recognition of what is and work toward what could be. Acceptance is the first step. Before action, before change, before improvement. First, you must see clearly, must recognize what is, must accept current reality. This clear seeing is the foundation. Without it, action is blind, is reactive, is based on wish rather than reality, based on how you want things to be rather than how they are. This creates ineffective action, creates struggle, creates the fight with reality that creates suffering. But when you accept first, when you see clearly first, when you recognize what is first, then action can be effective, can be based on reality, can be skillful, can actually create change. Is seeing clearly. Acceptance is clear seeing, is recognizing what is without the distortion of wish or resistance, without the filter of how you want things to be, without the overlay of judgment or preference. Just seeing what is, clearly, accurately, completely. This clear seeing is difficult because the mind constantly adds interpretation, adds judgment, adds wish, adds preference, constantly filters reality through what you want reality to be. Acceptance is letting go of this filtering, is seeing reality as it is, not as you wish it were, not as you think it should be, but as it actually is. This clear seeing is acceptance, is recognizing what actually is, not what you want to be, not what should be, not what could be, but what actually is, right now. In present reality, this moment, this situation, this circumstance, as it actually is. This recognition can be painful because often what is not what you want, is not what you think should be, is not what you prefer. Recognizing this can hurt, can be disappointing, can be difficult. But this recognition is necessary, is the foundation for everything else, for effective action, for wise response, for skillful coping. You must first recognize what is before you can effectively respond to what is. From this clear seeing, you can respond effectively. When you see reality clearly, when you recognize what is, when you accept present circumstances, you can respond skillfully, can respond based on reality rather than based on wish, can respond to what is rather than to what you think should be. This makes your response effective, makes it skillful, makes it likely to actually help. When you're in resistance, when you're fighting what is, when you're wishing things were different, you can't see clearly, can't respond effectively. Your response is contaminated by resistance, by wish, by the fight with reality. This makes your response ineffective, makes it more likely to create problems than to solve them. Can make changes. From acceptance, from clear seeing, you can make effective changes, can work skillfully to improve circumstances, can take action that actually helps. This is the paradox. Acceptance enables change, enables effective change, enables skillful change, not random action, not reactive struggle, but skillful action based on clear seeing, based on recognition of what is. This action is effective, is likely to help, is likely to actually create the change you seek. But this effective action requires acceptance first, requires clear seeing first, requires letting go of resistance first. Can improve things, but if you're caught in resistance, caught in wishing things were different, you can't see clearly. Your vision is distorted by resistance, by wish, by preference. You see what you want to see what you think should be, don't see what is. This distorted vision makes effective action impossible, makes improvement unlikely. You're acting based on distorted perception, based on wish rather than reality. This creates ineffective action, creates struggle, creates problems. You're fighting reality rather than working with reality. And fighting reality never works, never creates effective change, never improves things, just creates suffering. Can't respond effectively. When you're in resistance, your responses are reactive, are based on emotion rather than clear seeing, based on wish rather than reality, based on how you want things to be rather than how they are. This makes your responses ineffective, makes them likely to create problems rather than solve them, makes them likely to escalate conflict rather than resolve it, makes them likely to make things worse rather than better. Effective response requires clear seeing, requires recognition of what is, requires acceptance of current reality. Without this, response is reactive, is blind, is ineffective. Can't make useful changes. Changes made from resistance are rarely useful, rarely effective, rarely solve the actual problem, because the changes are based on distorted perception, based on wish, based on resistance, not based on clear seeing, not based on recognition of what is. So the changes address the imagined problem rather than the actual problem, address what you wish the situation were rather than what the situation is. This makes the changes ineffective, makes them unlikely to help, makes them sometimes make things worse. You're stuck in resistance, in suffering, in the wish that things were other than they are, stuck in the mental fight with reality, stuck in the emotional tension of wanting things to be different. This stuckness is suffering, is the prevention of effective action, is the trap that keeps you from responding skillfully. You're caught in resistance, can't see clearly because resistance distorts vision, can't act effectively because resistance prevents skillful action, can't move forward because resistance keeps you trapped in the fight with what is. This is the problem. This is the suffering. This is what acceptance resolves. Acceptance is letting go of this resistance, not forcing, not making yourself like something you don't like, not pretending something is good when it's not, just letting go, releasing, relaxing the tight grip, stopping the fight, ending the struggle. This letting go is acceptance, is the release of resistance, is the relaxation of the constant tension of fighting what is. This letting go can be subtle, can be gentle, doesn't require dramatic action, doesn't require complete transformation, just requires releasing, relaxing, stopping the fight, even slightly, even partially. This letting go creates relief, creates space, creates the possibility of peace, is recognizing reality as it is. This is what acceptance is. Recognizing, acknowledging, seeing clearly what is, not what should be, not what you want it to be, but what it is, right now. In this moment, this recognition is acceptance. This seeing is acceptance. This acknowledgement is acceptance. You're not changing how you feel about it, not making yourself like it, not pretending it's good, just recognizing it, seeing it, acknowledging it. This is acceptance, is saying, okay, this is what is. This simple statement, this simple recognition, okay, this is what is. This is reality. This is what's happening, okay? Not okay meaning good, not okay meaning acceptable, not okay meaning you like it, okay meaning you recognize it, acknowledge it, see it. This okay is acceptance, is the letting go of resistance, is the recognition of reality, okay? This is what is. This is my situation. This is my reality. This is what I'm experiencing, okay? This simple okay is profound, is transformative, is the foundation of peace. This is the situation. This is reality. Now what? This is the shift acceptance creates, from fighting what is to recognizing what is and asking now what, from resisting reality to accepting reality and responding to reality. This shift is everything, changes everything, moves you from stuckness to possibility, from resistance to response, from fighting to acting. Okay, this is the situation. I don't like it. I wish it were different. But this is what is. Now what? What can I do? How can I respond? What's possible from here? This is effective. This is skillful. This is how you actually create change, by first accepting what is, then responding to what is, then acting based on reality rather than based on wish. This acceptance creates peace, real peace. Not the peace of everything being perfect, not the peace of having no problems, not the peace of getting everything you want, but the peace of not fighting what is, the peace of letting go of resistance, the peace of accepting reality. This peace is profound, is available, is accessible through acceptance, through letting go, through the simple recognition this is what is. Okay, this peace doesn't eliminate difficulty, doesn't solve problems, doesn't make challenges disappear, but it eliminates the added suffering of resistance, eliminates the stress of fighting, eliminates the unhappiness of constant wish that things were different, creates clarity. When you stop fighting, when you let go of resistance, when you accept what is, you can see clearly. The resistance no longer distorts your vision. The wish no longer filters your perception. The fight no longer clouds your judgment. You can see what is, clearly, accurately, completely. This clarity is valuable, is necessary for effective action, for wise response, for skillful coping. Acceptance creates this clarity, creates the clear seeing that enables everything else. That enables effective response, that enables actual change, that enables skillful living, creates the space to respond effectively. Acceptance creates space, mental space, emotional space, the space between stimulus and response, between what happens and how you react. When you're in resistance, there's no space. There's just reaction, automatic reaction, conditioned response. But when you accept, when you let go of resistance, space appears, space to choose, space to consider, space to respond rather than react. This space is freedom, is agency, is the capacity to respond skillfully rather than react automatically. Acceptance creates this space, creates this freedom, creates this capacity to make changes if changes are possible. From this space, from this clarity, from this acceptance, you can make effective changes, can work skillfully to improve circumstances, can take action that actually helps. Not all changes are possible. Not all circumstances can be changed, but some can. And from acceptance, from clear seeing, you can identify what can be changed, can work effectively to change it, can create actual improvement. This is the paradox. Acceptance doesn't prevent change, enables effective change, skillful change, change based on reality rather than based on wish. To cope skillfully if changes aren't possible. Sometimes circumstances can't be changed. Sometimes what is cannot be made different. Sometimes you're stuck with the situation. In these cases, acceptance is even more important, even more necessary. Because if circumstances can't be changed, resistance just creates suffering, just adds pain to pain, just makes the unchangeable harder to bear. But acceptance, even of unchangeable circumstances, creates peace, creates the capacity to cope skillfully, to bear what must be borne, to live with what cannot be changed. This is not resignation, not giving up, not weakness, is wisdom, is strength, is the capacity to accept what cannot be changed and to live well anyway. Acceptance is the foundation of effective action. This is the summary, the key insight, the crucial understanding. Acceptance is not the opposite of action, is the foundation of action, of effective action, of skillful action. You must accept what is before you can effectively change what is, must see clearly before you can act wisely, must recognize reality before you can transform reality. Acceptance is the foundation. Action is what follows. Both are necessary, both are valuable, both are part of skillful living. But acceptance comes first, must come first. Without acceptance, action is blind, is reactive, is ineffective. With acceptance, action can be effective, can be skillful, can actually create change. Of wise response. Acceptance enables wisdom, enables the capacity to respond wisely rather than react automatically, enables the pause between stimulus and response, enables the clear seeing that allows wise choice. Without acceptance, response is reactive, is automatic, is conditioned. With acceptance, response can be wise, can be chosen, can be appropriate to the actual situation rather than to your wish about the situation. This wisdom is practical, is valuable, is what creates skillful living. Of skillful coping, when circumstances can't be changed, when what is must be accepted, skillful coping becomes essential, and skillful coping requires acceptance, requires recognizing what is, requires letting go of the wish that things were different. From this acceptance, you can cope skillfully, can bear what must be borne, can find ways to live well even with difficulty, even with pain, even with circumstances you wouldn't choose. This skillful coping is not giving up, not resignation, is wisdom, is the capacity to accept what cannot be changed and to live as well as possible within those constraints. Research on acceptance shows this. This is not just philosophy, not just spiritual teaching, not just theory. This is measured, this is demonstrated, this is proven through research. Acceptance-based therapies, ACT, DBT, show that increasing acceptance reduces suffering, measurably, significantly, consistently. These therapies don't focus on changing circumstances, don't focus on eliminating problems, focus on changing relationship to circumstances, on increasing acceptance, on reducing resistance. And this works, produces measurable results, produces real reduction in suffering. Acceptance-based therapies, ACT, DBT, acceptance and commitment therapy, dialectical behavior therapy. These are evidence-based treatments, treatments that have been studied extensively, treatments that show measurable, significant effects. Both focus on acceptance, on recognizing what is, on letting go of resistance, on changing relationship to experience rather than trying to eliminate difficult experiences. ACT teaches acceptance of thoughts and feelings, teaches that trying to eliminate or control thoughts and feelings creates problems, teaches that acceptance of mental and emotional experience is the foundation for effective living. DBT teaches radical acceptance, teaches accepting reality completely, accepting what is without judgment, without resistance. Both therapies show that increasing acceptance reduces suffering. Show that increasing acceptance reduces suffering. This is measured, is quantified, is demonstrated through controlled studies. People who increase acceptance, who reduce resistance, who let go of the fight with reality, report less suffering, report less anxiety, report less depression, report less distress. This is not placebo, not expectation, not just people feeling better because they expect to feel better. This is actual measured reduction in suffering, reduction in symptoms, reduction in distress, produced by increasing acceptance, by reducing resistance, by changing relationship to experience. Reduces anxiety. Anxiety is often resistance to future, is fear of what might happen, is worry about possibilities, is the mind creating suffering through imagination of negative futures. Acceptance reduces this. When you accept present moment, when you recognize what is now, anxiety about future diminishes. Not completely, not magically, but significantly, because anxiety is resistance to uncertainty, is the demand for control over what can't be controlled, is the wish for certainty about what's uncertain. Acceptance lets go of this demand, recognizes uncertainty as reality, accepts not knowing. This reduces anxiety, creates peace with uncertainty, creates the capacity to live with not knowing rather than being tormented by it, reduces depression. Depression is often resistance to reality, is the demand that things be different than they are, is the constant comparison between what is and what should be, is the perpetual judgment that reality is insufficient. Acceptance reduces this. When you accept what is, when you let go of the demand that reality be different, depression diminishes. Not completely, not instantly, but significantly, because much depression is created by resistance, by the constant fight with reality, by the endless wish that things were different. Acceptance lets go of this fight, accepts what is. This doesn't solve all problems, doesn't eliminate all depression, but it reduces the depression created by resistance, by fighting reality. Increases happiness. Acceptance creates happiness. Not dramatic happiness, not euphoria, but contentment, satisfaction, peace, the happiness of not fighting, the happiness of accepting what is, the happiness of being at peace with reality. This is real happiness, lasting happiness, not dependent on circumstances being perfect, not dependent on getting everything you want, but dependent on your relationship to circumstances, on accepting what is, on not resisting reality. This happiness is available, is accessible, is created through acceptance, through letting go, through peace with what is, increases life satisfaction. Satisfaction with life doesn't come from having everything you want, doesn't come from perfect circumstances, doesn't come from achieving all goals, comes from accepting what is, from being at peace with your life, from not constantly wishing things were different. Acceptance creates this satisfaction, creates the sense that life is okay, that circumstances are acceptable, that things are good enough, not perfect, not ideal, but good enough. This satisfaction is profound, is valuable, is what creates well-being, and it comes from acceptance, from letting go of resistance, from peace with what is. Not by changing circumstances. The therapies don't focus on changing external circumstances, don't focus on solving problems, don't focus on eliminating difficulties. Focus on changing relationship to circumstances, on accepting rather than resisting, on being with rather than fighting. This is the shift. This is what creates relief. Not changed circumstances, but changed relationship to circumstances. Not elimination of problems, but acceptance of problems. Not perfect life, but peace with imperfect life. This is the solution. This is what works. This is what creates well-being. By changing relationship to circumstances. This is agency. This is where you have control. You cannot always control circumstances, cannot always control what happens to you, cannot always control your situation, but you can control your relationship to your situation, can control whether you accept or resist, whether you fight or flow, whether you wish things were different or accept things as they are. This is your power. This is your agency. This is what you can control. And this is what creates your experience, your suffering or peace, your stress or calm, your happiness or unhappiness, not circumstances, but relationship to circumstances, by reducing resistance. This is the mechanism. This is how acceptance works. Acceptance reduces resistance, reduces the fight with reality, reduces the wish that things were different. This reduction of resistance is itself relief, is itself the solution, is itself the creation of peace. You don't need to change anything else, don't need to solve all problems, don't need to eliminate all difficulties, just need to reduce resistance, just need to accept what is. This creates relief, creates peace, creates well-being. Through reducing the suffering you add through resistance, through fighting, through wishing things were different. By increasing acceptance. Acceptance is a capacity, is a skill, can be trained, can be developed, can be increased through practice. The more you practice acceptance, the more accepting you become. The more easily you can accept, the more readily you can let go of resistance. This capacity grows, develops, strengthens through practice, through repeatedly choosing acceptance over resistance, through repeatedly letting go of the fight with reality. Each time you accept, you're strengthening this capacity, making it easier next time, making acceptance more automatic, more natural, more accessible. By letting go of the fight with reality, the fight itself is the suffering. Letting go of the fight is the solution, is the relief, is the peace. You don't need to win the fight, don't need to change reality, don't need to make things different, just need to stop fighting, stop resisting, stop wishing things were different. This letting go is acceptance, is peace, is the end of suffering. The suffering you create through fighting, through resisting, through constant tension with what is. If you want to be happier, practice acceptance. This is practical advice. This is actionable. This is something you can do starting now, not dramatic acceptance, not accepting everything, not blind acceptance, but acceptance of what is, recognition of reality, letting go of resistance. This practice creates happiness, creates peace, creates well-being, not by changing circumstances, by changing relationship to circumstances, by reducing resistance, by increasing acceptance. This is practice, is something you do repeatedly, consistently, and through this practice, happiness grows, peace develops, well-being increases. Not of everything, acceptance is discerning, is wise, not blind, not indiscriminate, not accepting abuse or injustice or harm, not accepting things that should be changed, not accepting passively everything that happens. Acceptance is wise, is discerning, accepts what is while working to change what can and should be changed, accepts present reality while working toward different future reality, accepts what cannot be changed while working to change what can be. This is wise acceptance. This is skillful acceptance. This is what's being taught. Not blind acceptance of everything, but wise recognition of what is and skillful response to what is. Not blindly. Acceptance is not denial, not pretending things are fine when they're not ignoring problems, not overlooking difficulties. Acceptance is clear seeing, is recognizing what is, completely, accurately, honestly. This clear seeing includes recognizing problems, recognizing difficulties, recognizing what needs to change, but also recognizing what is, what's actually happening now. This recognition, this acceptance of present reality, is the foundation for wise action, for effective change, for skillful response. Blind acceptance would be denial, would be ignoring reality. True acceptance is seeing reality clearly, including all of it, problems and all, but of reality as it is. This is the object of acceptance. Reality. What is? What's actually happening? Not what should be. Not what you want it to be, but what it is. This is what you accept. This is what you recognize. This is what you stop fighting. Reality as it is. Right now. In this moment. This situation. This circumstance. This experience. As it actually is. This acceptance doesn't mean you won't work to change future reality. Doesn't mean you think current reality is good. Just means you recognize current reality, accept what is now. This is the foundation. This is the starting point. This is what allows everything else. This doesn't mean you won't work to change things. Acceptance and action are compatible, are complementary, are both necessary. You accept what is while working to create what could be. Accept present reality while working toward different future reality. Accept current circumstances while working to improve circumstances. These are not contradictory, are not incompatible, are both part of skillful living. Accept first, then act, then work to change what can be changed. But accept first. This is the foundation. This is what makes action effective, what makes change possible, what makes improvement likely. Means you'll start from clear seeing. Acceptance creates clear seeing, creates accurate perception, creates recognition of what actually is. This clear seeing is the foundation for effective action. You can't effectively change what you don't clearly see, can't skillfully respond to what you don't accurately perceive, can't wisely act on what you don't truly recognize. Clear seeing comes first, comes from acceptance, from letting go of resistance that distorts perception, from seeing what is rather than what you wish were. This clear seeing enables everything else, enables effective action, enables wise response, enables skillful change. From recognition of what is, this is where you start, with recognition, with acknowledgement, with seeing clearly what is, not what should be, not what could be, but what is, right now. This recognition is acceptance, is the foundation, is what everything else builds on. From this recognition, from this clear seeing, you can respond effectively, can act wisely, can create change skillfully. But without this recognition, without this acceptance, Action is blind. Response is reactive. Change is random. Recognition of what is essential, is the foundation, is where everything begins. From letting go of resistance, letting go creates space, creates clarity, creates the possibility of wise response. As long as you're resisting, as long as you're fighting, as long as you're wishing things were different, you can't respond effectively, can't see clearly, can't act wisely. The resistance blocks, distorts, prevents. But when you let go, when you stop fighting, when you accept what is, space opens, clarity emerges, possibility appears, the possibility of wise response, of effective action, of skillful change. This comes from letting go, from acceptance, from the end of resistance. This creates peace, real peace, available peace, the peace of not fighting, the peace of acceptance, the peace of recognizing what is and being okay with it. Not okay meaning you like it, okay meaning you accept it, recognize it, stop fighting it. This peace is profound, is valuable, is what makes life livable even when life is difficult. This peace doesn't eliminate problems, doesn't solve difficulties, doesn't make challenges disappear, but it eliminates the suffering of resistance, eliminates the stress of fighting, eliminates the unhappiness of constant wish that things were different. This peace is available, is accessible, is created through acceptance. Creates clarity. Acceptance clears the mind, clears perception, clears vision. When you stop fighting, when you let go of resistance, when you accept what is, you can see clearly, see what's actually happening, see what's actually possible, see what can actually be done. This clarity is valuable, is necessary, is what enables effective response. Without clarity, response is blind, action is random, change is unlikely. With clarity, response can be wise, action can be effective, change can be skillful. Acceptance creates this clarity, creates this clear seeing, creates this foundation for everything else, creates the foundation for effective action. This is the purpose. This is the goal. This is why acceptance matters. Not to give up, not to resign, not to passively accept everything, but to create the foundation for effective action, for wise response, for skillful change. Acceptance is the beginning, is the foundation, is what everything else builds on. From acceptance comes clarity. From clarity comes wise response. From wise response comes effective action. From effective action comes actual change. The sequence begins with acceptance. Without acceptance, the rest doesn't follow. With acceptance, the rest becomes possible. For wise response, response that's appropriate, that's skillful, that's based on reality rather than wish, that addresses what is rather than what you wish were. This wise response comes from acceptance, from clear seeing, from recognition of what is. This response is not reactive, not automatic, not conditioned, is chosen, is conscious, is appropriate, is skillful. This is what you want. This is what creates effective living. This is what acceptance enables. For skillful living, living well, living wisely, living effectively, this doesn't mean living perfectly, doesn't mean having no problems, doesn't mean everything going the way you want. Means living skillfully with whatever is, living wisely in response to reality as it is, living effectively given actual circumstances. This skillful living comes from acceptance, from clear seeing, from wise response, from effective action, all of it building on the foundation of acceptance, of recognizing what is, of letting go of resistance, of being at peace with reality. This is skillful living. This is what creates well-being. This is what acceptance enables. Accept what is, then respond, then act, then change what can be changed. This is the sequence. This is the process. This is how skillful living works. Accept first. Recognize what is. Let go of resistance. See clearly, then respond. Choose wise response based on clear seeing, then act. Take effective action based on wise response, then change. Change what can be changed, improve what can be improved, transform what can be transformed. This sequence works, creates effective change, creates skillful improvement, creates wise transformation, but it begins with acceptance, must begin with acceptance. Without acceptance, the rest is blind, is reactive, is ineffective. But start with acceptance. This is crucial. This is essential. This is what makes everything else possible. Start with acceptance. Start with recognizing what is. Start with letting go of resistance. Start with clear seeing. Start here. This is the foundation. Everything else builds on this. Without this foundation, nothing else works. With this foundation, everything else becomes possible. With seeing clearly, with recognizing reality, with acknowledging what is. This is acceptance. This is where you begin. This is the foundation. See clearly. See what's actually happening. See reality as it is, not as you wish it were, not as you think it should be, but as it is. This clear seeing is acceptance, is the beginning, is the foundation for everything else. With letting go of resistance, let go, release, relax the fight, stop struggling, stop wishing things were different, just let go. This letting go is acceptance, is peace, is the end of suffering, the suffering you create through resistance, through fighting, through constant tension with what is. Let go of this, release this. This is acceptance, this is peace, this is the beginning of happiness. This creates peace, creates clarity, creates well-being. Acceptance creates all of this, creates the foundation for everything good, for effective action, for wise response, for skillful living, for happiness, for satisfaction, for peace. Acceptance creates this, not by changing circumstances, by changing relationship to circumstances, by reducing resistance, by increasing recognition, by letting go of fight. This creates peace, creates clarity, creates well-being, creates happiness. All of it available, all of it accessible, all of it created through acceptance, through recognizing what is, through letting go of resistance, through peace with reality. Sleep now knowing that happiness is available, is accessible, is created through how you live, through acceptance, through recognizing what is, through letting go of resistance, through peace with reality. This creates happiness, real happiness, lasting happiness, not happiness dependent on circumstances, but happiness dependent on your relationship to circumstances, on accepting rather than resisting, on being with rather than fighting, on recognizing what is rather than wishing for what isn't. This happiness is yours, is available, is accessible, right now, through acceptance, through letting go, through peace with what is. Sleep now, rest now, knowing that happiness doesn't come from perfect circumstances, comes from perfect acceptance, from complete recognition, from total letting go of resistance. This is available, this is accessible, this is yours, through acceptance, through recognizing what is, through peace with reality, right now, in this moment, always. Good night.